Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special OOSKAnews podcast. My name's David Duncan, and I am founder and publisher of OOSKAnews, the world's specialist provider of news and intelligence on the planet's water challenges. We look at where water meets agriculture, where water meets industry, where water touches humanitarian issues. We report on the financing of water. We report on where water challenges impact environmental issues, the intersections of both food and water, energy and water, and indeed climate and water. Our guest today is Professor Ben Braga, President of the World Water Council, or WWC. The World Water Council is one of the drivers of the International Climate is Water initiative, which is an effort to elevate the visibility of water within broader global climate change discussions, in particular the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC. Viewers and listeners will be familiar with the annual Convention of Parties organised by the UN, which are known as COPs, Conventions of Parties. Very notably, at the 21st annual COP in Paris in 2014, or COP21, the national parties reached a milestone agreement to combat climate change, widely known as the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. Climate is Water reaches out to the climate community at every level for better consideration of water issues. Professor Benedito Braga, as well as being President of the World Water Council, is Secretary of State for Sanitation and Water Resources for the Brazilian state of Sao Paulo, and Professor of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Escola Politecnica of University of Sao Paulo. He is author of 25 books and chapters of books on global water resources, and joins us today by video link from Brazil. Welcome, President Braga. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
Many of our viewers and listeners are, I'm sure, familiar with the role and activities of the World Water Council, which you lead. Some may be less familiar. I wonder if we could start by asking you to take a couple of minutes to give us some context, describe the Council. What does the World Water Council do?
Well, the World Water Council is a multi-stakeholder platform that aims at raising the political awareness about water. We want to have water at the highest political level at the global environment. For that, we are 350 members from around 50 countries, including some governmental organizations like the Ministry of Ecology of France, the Ministry of Water Resources of China, some NGOs like IUCN and WWF, like some research institutes, universities, and the private sector as well. So this group of people is managed by a board of governors of 35 of these institutions involved. And we discuss public policies that should improve water management worldwide, should improve the access to safe drinking water and sanitation from the less developed countries of the world. And of course, we are very much interested in the relationship between climate and water, and how the agendas of climate and the agenda of water can interact to the benefit of people. And of course, one of the important elements that we have in order to influence the political agenda is the organization of the World Water Forums that started back in 1997 in Marrakesh, in Morocco, And the next one is going to be in Brazil. And we have very good hopes that this initiative will move the water agenda forward in the years to come.
So there are two tracks of global gatherings then. There are the COP meetings, which happen annually and look at climate broadly, and happily, more recently, incorporating water into their thinking. Then there is the well-established programme of World Water Fora, with the next one in Brasilia. Looking at these two tracks separately, and well, let's do the climate bit first. Hopes were raised by the Paris Agreement 2 COPs ago, and then when you and I last spoke in September in Stockholm, you were optimistic about the process of raising awareness of water issues being further progressed at last year's COP in Marrakesh. Was that optimism justified? Was this a good COP for water?
I am sure it was because we, together with the French government and the Moroccan government, the council organized a midterm meeting in between the two COPs, the French and the Moroccan, in which we discussed how the Moroccan government could bring the subject of water to the blue zone, to where the decisions are made around climate, around agriculture, around energy, etc. And we, through this work, preparatory work, we managed to have a water day on the 9th of November in Marrakesh, where the Five Fingers Alliance was presented by the council, in which we are looking on the interactions between water, food, energy, health, education. And this system provided some insights as to how adaptation is going to be more prominent in the discussions around climate. Because since the beginning of the negotiations on the climate, the COPs, the emphasis has been energy, has been mitigation measures. So from now, we understand that the issue of adaptation and water is central to adaptation, is going to more and more being discussed. And let us see how the governments are going to bring, more financial elements into the adaptation discussion. So I think that my optimism was correct, and my feeling is that water has come to stay in these discussions, and we look very much forward to the next COP in Bonn under the leadership of Fiji, that these negotiations will progress much more towards adaptation and towards water.
And is there a water day planned for the next COP under Fiji's presidency? It was widely discussed in Marrakesh that one of the reasons that Morocco was good at taking a leadership position around water resources is because it's a water challenged nation. Fiji is also a water challenged nation with a whole different other set of problems and priorities. Can the water momentum be maintained?
I think so because small islands are very fragile and they are very much dependent on the results of severe weather, be it in terms of monsoons or typhoons, hurricanes, or in terms of excess of water, but also in changing the climate, changing the rainfall patterns may bring some severe droughts in which, being a small state, it's much more difficult to find solutions for a severe drought than in a larger state where you can bring water from distant places. So I think Fiji play, understands the importance of adaptation, the importance of bringing, policies that would make them more resilient to severe droughts and to severe floods. So my perception is that Fiji will very much like to continue this trend on adaptation and on bringing water to the discussions. In the case of Morocco, it was more on the infrastructure that Morocco had already been put forward in the past. And the case of Fiji is the future that they are looking forward to be more resilient, and they would very much like to have water and adaptation playing a much more important role in the next COP.
It's good to hear your optimism again, Professor Braga. You have already mentioned the other part of this, the track of World Water Fora, which occur every 3 years, with the eighth of these events scheduled to take place and be hosted by your home country, under, I understand, the theme of sharing water. Perhaps you could talk through the thinking behind that theme.
Yes, the general theme is sharing waters. And this is a very important element in water management. We have in the world the 261 river basins that are shared by two or more countries. And of course, water security in these river basins is extremely important because water security in these river basins means food security, means energy security, and means national security at the end. I think that the Brazilians have chosen a very, very important general theme for the next edition of the forum. Brazil itself shares two very major, important river basins with neighbors in South America. Brazil is downstream in the Amazon basin, shared with 9 other countries of South America, North South America, and the Plata Basin, Paraná Plata Basin in the south, where Brazil shares with other 4 important south cone of South America countries. So we look very much forward to listen how this general theme can bring some policies that will be important for other parts of the world. I can mention the Nile Basin. Egypt is said to be a gift from the Nile because it's totally dependent on the waters that flow from other 9 countries upstream in the Nile Basin. And so very important for national security. So, what kind of policies can we put together to discuss this very important issue? But not only that, we have six other themes that will be discussed. One on urban issues. The world is becoming more and more urbanized. So, how do we deal with the water in the urban environment? How do we integrate solid waste management with sanitation, with urban flooding, with transportation, with urban housing? How can we organize the water management in such a way that these other sectors of the urban environment are integrated? In the poor countries of the world, many times people live in the banks of the small creeks in these metropolitan regions. And when the flooding comes, people uh, are losing their lives because of living so close. So this has to be integrated. So the urban environment, climate, it's another important thing that we're going to discuss, how to integrate water and climate. Then financing, it's another very important element. We cannot continue to put forward very beautiful policies if you do not have the money to put them in practice. So how can we find some win-win policy financing mechanisms whereby the more affluent countries can benefit from, providing financing for the poorer countries. We have ecosystems management that play a very important role. We have sustainability. This is another element that this forum is going to discuss and which is fundamental. How all these policies that we are discussing here, how they can be sustainable from an environmental point of view, but as well from an economic point of view, from a social point of view. We need to have policies that are sustainable in a much broader sense. So these are some of the themes that will be discussed here in Brasilia. And we are very much, we are very happy that the high-level panel of heads of state that has been established by the Secretary General of UN and the President of the World Bank. We have 12 heads of states participating in this panel, which envisages promoting water and the compliance with the goals of the Sustainable Development Goals that have been approved at the UN General Assembly. So this panel is working for 1 year now, and they are going to launch their final report during the forum here in Brasilia. So we're looking very much forward for this very important political element of the forum as well.
Thank you, President Braga. OOSKAnews will continue to report, of course, on the progress of the high-level panel, the World Water Forum, and indeed the COP process. We very much appreciate you taking the time to speak to our viewers and listeners today. I understand tomorrow is a national holiday in Brazil.
That's correct.
Well, I wish you and your fellow countrymen well. My Portuguese is not wonderful. What is the correct phrase? How do I wish you a happy national holiday?
Feliz Dia 21.
Okay. Feliz Dia 21.
Close enough?
Funcionou.
Okay. Thank you again very much for your time and the time of your staff in organising this, Mr. Braga. I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you so very much. It was my pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Count on me. Thank you. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.